Welcome to our second homework video. This one's on adding, subtracting rational expressions, and then also some additional problems on complex fractions. So when you're adding and subtracting, you have to make sure that the denominator is the same. So that's kind of the rule here. So if you notice these first six, the denominator is the same. So I'm going to do one example, and then I'll leave the rest for you to do. Notice here that I have 5 and 5 on the denominator, which means that's going to be my denominator, 5. You don't subtract those, you don't add those, all you do is carry down that denominator here. Now, the operation is performed on the top. So I have 2x minus 7 minus 6. Now you can collect like terms. Negative 7 minus 6. So I have 2x minus 13 over 5. Then you want to check to see if you can simplify. In this case, there's nothing that you can, there's no GCF, there's nothing you can simplify further, so you are done. Okay? All right, I'll let you do the rest of those. Let's take a look at number 7. All right, so when you have ones that you need to factor, that's kind of the first thing you want to look for. Because you want to look to see if there's a common denominator, and when you do not see a common denominator, you're going to have to factor these, because until you factor these, you don't know what you need in order to create that common denominator. So let's go ahead and factor those. Give you a little reminder of factoring. So I have negative 10, so I'm going to go into the calculator. I'm going to do negative 10 divided by x, and then negative 10 divided by x plus x. And then we're going to go into our table. Factors of 10 that add up to 3. So factors of 10 that add up to 3. Okay, so that's 5 and negative 2. So my denominator, x plus 5, x minus 2. And notice that this is actually the same trinomial, so we know that this is going to be x plus 5, x minus 2. So these are actually already the same denominator, but you need to remember that you have to factor the denominator. All right, so then the next thing is I still have my 3x on the bottom and my 6. I can combine this, 3x minus 6, but remember, we're just going to take that common denominator, x plus 5, x minus 2. Now you want to check to see if anything can be simplified or factored further. We already factored our denominator, so if you look here, I could take a 3 out, so that's going to leave me 3x minus 6, x minus 2 at the top, and then x plus 5, x minus 2. Notice I have x minus 2 at the top, x minus 2 at the bottom, so I can cross that out. So then my final answer is 3 over x plus 5. Okay. All right, let's take a look at number 8. All right, so we need to look to find denominator. So if I look here, I have a 4 and an x. In this denominator, I only have x times x. I'm just rewriting this. So notice that I'm missing an x in this denominator, which means that I've got to multiply it times x. But if I multiply the denominator times x, then I have to multiply the numerator times x. Now that will give me 2 x's here in this denominator. And then let's look. Notice that this doesn't have a 4, so I'm going to multiply times 4 on this side. But remember, when I multiply the denominator times 4, then that means I also have to do the numerator times 4. Okay? So over here, remember this is multiplication. I have 3x over 4x squared minus 4 times 2 is 8 over 4 times x squared is 4x squared. Okay, so I've accomplished what I wanted to. I want these denominators to be the same. Once they're the same, then I can put them over 4x squared. And then I'm going to perform the operation on the top. 3x minus 8. Is there anything I can factor out here? Nope. So that is your final answer. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and leave number 9 for you to try. Let's go ahead and go to number 10. All right, so I need a common denominator here. So I have an x minus 1, and then I have an x squared minus x. So you want to see if you can factor either of these. The x minus 1 I can't do anything with, but this I can factor to x times x minus 1. Okay, so I factored that out. So then I'm going to rewrite, I've got x plus 1 over x minus 1 plus negative 2 over x times x minus 1. I'm going to look at the denominator. I see I have an x minus 1. If you want to put parentheses around it, you can. I have an x minus 1, so we're good there. But then I have an x on this one, and I don't have an x in the denominator of this one. So I'm going to multiply the denominator over here by x, but remember, if I do that to the denominator, I also have to do it to the numerator of this fraction. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and multiply that through. I have x times x plus 1 over x times x minus 1 plus negative 2 over x times x minus 1. My denominators match, so I can perform the operation on the top. X times x plus 1 minus 2 over x times x minus 1. Okay, now what you're going to have to do now is you're going to have to simplify this top, because until you simplify the top, you can't be sure if there's anything to cross out. Please be careful. You cannot cross out these x's, because in order to cross out the x, it would have to be a term, variable for each of the terms. Notice that the minus 2 does not have an x with it, so you cannot simplify that. So let's go ahead and clean up the top. The denominator is going to stay. We don't have to multiply that back through. We're just going to leave that there. So we've got, to distribute that back in, we've got x squared plus x minus 2. Well, this is a trinomial that I can actually factor. And if I factor that, that gives me x plus 2, x minus 1, and then x minus 1. Notice now I have an x minus 1, x minus 1. I can cross those out. So your final answer is going to be x plus 2 over x. Okay? I'll go ahead and let you do 11 and 12 on your own. Just remember to go ahead and factor the denominator first. Going to the next page, same thing. I'm going to go ahead and pick up with number 14. Okay, so number 14 looks confusing because I have this plus 2. All right, well, when you just have 2, you know that the denominator is 1. So I have 3 over x plus 2 plus 2 over 1. Okay, same rules apply. I need to make the denominator the same. This says x plus 2. Well, over here, okay, I need to multiply something to get x plus 2 in the denominator. Well, the only thing I can multiply to get x plus 2 in the denominator is x plus 2. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite. I still have 3x plus 2 over here, and then I multiplied this x plus 2. Remember, if I do it to the denominator, I have to do it to the numerator, so that gives me 2 times x plus 2. So now I can perform the operation x plus 2. And then I have 3 plus 2 times x plus 2. And then I can go ahead and simplify that by distributing that first. That's going to give me 3 plus 2x plus 4 over x plus 2. I can combine like terms, which gives me 2x plus 7 over x plus 2. So if you don't have enough room on this paper to write your answer down, you might want to get a piece of scratch paper out. Also make sure you write neatly and orderly so you don't lose track of your factors and what you're adding and subtracting. 15 looks a little intimidating, but I'm going to leave that one for you. Just make sure that you have the factors, a common denominator for all 3. Okay, but my hint is to factor that first and then figure out what you need to multiply to get a common denominator in the bottom. All right, let's go on. So for this one right here, now this we've changed, now we're doing division. And I know this looks confusing and complicated, but what you need to do is write it pretty. 2y, this line right here means divided by 3 over x. But we know that divided by, there's no such thing as divided by, so we're going to multiply times the reciprocal. So we're going to stay, change, switch. That's what Mrs. Mills says. 2 over y times x over 3. Now we can multiply straight across. 2x over 3y. Can I simplify anything? Nope, I'm done. All right, let's do one more. I'm going to do number 20. You are welcome. You will have a quiz on this next class, not on the adding and subtracting, but on the division and characteristics. So let's take a look at this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to make this look pretty. 4x squared plus x minus 3 over 6x to the 5th divided by 8x squared minus 10x plus 3 over 2x. So I made it look pretty, but we know that we can't divide. We have to multiply times the reciprocal. So I have 4x squared plus x minus 3 over 6x squared times, I'm going to flip 2x over 8x squared minus 10x plus 3. All right, now you have a lot of factoring that you need to do. So my suggestion would be to get a separate piece of paper out and do your factoring on a separate piece of paper. All right, the first thing I'm going to factor, this is for number 20, is this 4x squared plus x minus 3. Okay, so because it has a leading coefficient greater than 1, I know that I'm looking for factors of negative 12 that add up to 1. Okay, and again, you could do that in your calculator. So negative 12 divided by x. Oops, I forgot the negative. Negative 12 divided by x. Negative 12 divided by x plus x. And then to the table. Remember, I'm looking for positive 1, so 4 and negative 3. Now, if you do slip and slide, this is, you want to go ahead and do slip and slide if that's what you want to do. For me, I'm going to do grouping. So I have 4x squared, and then we said 4 and negative 3 plus 4x minus 3x minus 3. All right, I'm going to group these together. What can I take out? I can take a 4x out. That's going to leave me x plus 1. Take a negative 3 out. That leaves me x plus 1. So then I have 4x minus 3, and I have x plus 1. Okay, so that's my numerator. I'm going to go ahead and write that here. Of my first fraction, 4x minus 3 times x plus 1, and that's over 6x squared. And then we're multiplying times 2x. I can't do anything with that. Remember, this is multiplication, so I don't care about a common denominator. That's only when adding and subtracting. All right, so let's go ahead and factor the next one. I have 8x squared minus 10x plus 3. And I am going to multiply because that's going to give me positive 24. So I'm looking for factors of 24 that add up to negative 10. Factors of 24. That add up to negative 10. Okay, right there, negative 6 and negative 4. So 8x squared minus 4x minus 6x plus 3. Again, we're just splitting the middle term into these two terms. So I'm going to take out a 4x. That's going to give me 2x minus 1. Here I can take out a negative 3. That's going to give me 2x minus 1. So 4x minus 3 and 2x minus 1 are my factors. 4x minus 3, 2x minus 1. Now, I like to look to see if I can factor anything out or cross anything out, see if there's anything. Remember, this is multiplication, so I can go ahead and cross things out over that multiplication sign. You cannot do that for addition and subtraction. So I see I can cross this out. Handwriting's so terrible, that's an X. Okay, I can cross this out. I see that I can, the 2 and the 6, 2 goes into 2 once. 2 goes into 6 3 times. I have 1x over here. I have 2 down here, so this becomes 1x. That looks like all I can factor out. So let's see what's left on the top. Okay, I have left on the top this x plus 1, and then just 1 is left over here. So x plus 1 times 1 is just x plus 1. At the bottom I have the 3. I have 1x left, and then I have the 2x minus 1. So on the bottom I have 3x times 2x minus 1. You don't need to multiply those back together. You can just leave them like they are. Correction, I made a mistake here. I transferred this wrong, right? This is x to the 5th, not squared. So this is x to the 5th, which means I have 4 left. So that's going to be 4 down there. All right, so number 9 or 19 you should be able to do. And then you have one more page of homework, which was these. Okay, so these are back to adding and subtracting. Let's look at the top one. Assume the denominator does not equal 0, which expression is equivalent. Okay, well this is, you need to look, this is addition. Okay, so the trick here is I need to make the denominators look the same. What can I multiply times this fraction? Well, this is x minus 4, and that's x plus 1. So I'm going to have to multiply times that x plus 1. And then over here, I'm missing the x minus 4, so I've got to multiply x minus 4. Remember, you're always having to multiply something. You can't just add a 4 on that side. You have to multiply something. Okay, that's kind of my hint for that one, so you should be able to multiply that through and find the correct answer. Down here, same thing, which expression is equivalent, so it's going to be the same steps, except you're going to have a different denominator. And then number 22, select the values that are not in the domain of this function. So this goes back to graphical characteristics, which you are going to have a quiz on next class. This is saying what are the excluded values. So there's 2 ways to do this. We could put it in the calculator, or you could factor this denominator and find the excluded value. So I'm going to do both. I have x minus 5 on the bottom, and then if I factor this, I'm going to have x minus 4, x plus 3. Excluded values are going to make what makes the denominator 0. So I have x minus 4 equals 0, so plus 4 plus 4, so that's x equals 4. That makes the denominator 0, and we know that we cannot divide by 0. And then I have x plus 3 equals 0, minus 3 minus 3, x equals minus 3. So my excluded values are negative 3 and positive 4. So the other thing you could do was put this in the calculator. Okay, let's clear this out. Remember, to make it look like a fraction, we're going to do alpha y equals. And then I have x minus 5 at the top. Then I have x squared minus x minus 12. And then we're going to go ahead and go to graph. Remember, the excluded values are where the asymptotes are. All right, now sometimes on the graph it's kind of hard to see, but if you go into the table and you look, there's an error. The graph cannot exist at negative 3, and the graph cannot exist at 4. Your secret phrase for this video is going to be Happy Birthday, Miss Neumeister. I'm going to ask you that on the quiz, what the secret phrase was for video homework number 3, and if you write that on your quiz, you will receive extra credit and a ticket in the jar to win a prize at the end of this unit. Happy birthday, Miss Neumeister.